Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast. This is episode 5 on the 10th of February 2021, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. I'm here with Jonas. How you doing, man?
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Give us a bit of an intro. How did you get into crypto? Who are you? Why are you on this podcast? What are you here to tell us about?
So I'm Jonas. I'm a software developer from Sweden, and I think I heard about Bitcoin in 2010, so
That
pretty
is
early.
pretty early. Yeah.
Yeah, so I downloaded the wallet and I couldn't buy it from anywhere. I just found like a faucet. I think Gavin Anderson gave out free Bitcoins at that time. And then I just couldn't figure it out, so I deleted the wallet and just forgot about
Yeah.
it. So, uh, in hindsight, that's kind of, well, I wish I didn't do that, but here we are. And in 4 years after that, I think we had a cryptography course in the university, and we actually had the section about Bitcoin and blockchain and how it works, even on the exam. And then finally, I took the time to read up and what was this and read the white paper, and I've been a cryptocurrency supporter ever since. And I think I'm on this podcast because I'm soon, hopefully, gonna release a book about crypto, basically explaining what it's about, not just speculation, but what you can use for it and why everyone should care.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's actually quite a sort of common story in some senses, is that people come to crypto like at their second bite of the apple. There's so many people, especially from the very, very early days, that I've heard that have some sort of story like, oh, I got out my laptop and I heard about it. I mined like 2 blocks or something when it was just on GPUs, and then I threw out my hard drive or whatever. Or I went back to it and discovered that I'd only mined zero point 0.1 when I thought, oh, maybe I've mined thousands, and you know. But that sort
Yeah,
of that sort of like circle of people who heard about it because they were in the industry a little bit or whatever, right?
yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty cool. For me, the first time I heard about Bitcoin was in 2013, briefly, but or maybe it was it in 2013 when the Silk Road went down? It was, right? Or maybe
I
2012.
think so.
But I think it was 2013, and I was at my mate's place, and he said to me, he said, "Oh, did you hear about this thing? Did you hear about Bitcoin?" I said, "What's Bitcoin?" He said, "Oh, it's this currency that they were using to trade on the dark net to sell drugs, and the website was Silk Road, and the website went down, and so now they can't trade, right? So the price of Bitcoin has crashed." And I said to him, "Let's buy some, right?" Because my logic was that somebody would put up another website. That was all I knew. I didn't know anything about Bitcoin. I didn't know anything else. But I was just like, well, if that website's gone down, you can always make another website, but the price will recover. So I guess I was very
Yeah,
opportunistic like that, you know.
cool.
But yeah, everybody comes to it in their own way. It's very interesting, right? So yeah, obviously we're gonna just go here and go. Well, part of this slide did not load. That's not good. Um, anyway, basically, what it should be is this coin market cap thing here. So I don't know, how much do you follow the price of Bitcoin Cash? You a big price
Well,
fanatic?
not really. Well, I try not to look, but it's almost like a train cash. You can't look away, especially in these times when it's like going up like crazy. So yeah, I think I have a pretty good
Yeah,
handle on
one
it.
thing about crypto is it's definitely never boring. Anyway, Bitcoin Cash
Yeah,
$483. It was up to over 500 in the last couple of days after the announcement that we're just going to get to in a second. But yeah, it's back down a little bit. Just got knocked off Dogecoin, got in the top 10 and then out. I mean, yeah, I agree. I don't really put a lot of stock necessarily in the price, whether it's up or down, right? Because it seems very uncorrelated with the actual amount of real world adoption or use of anything, right? So
yeah, of
let
course.
me just put this back onto full screen. Let's see if this be all good now. All right, so the massive news, right? 2 days ago, or maybe even one day ago, maybe I'm losing track of time, but Elon Musk announced that he had purchased $1.5 billion dollars of Bitcoin in Tesla. What was your initial reaction?
Well, it's like, wow, that's extremely huge because it seems like everything Musk buys or talks about, it goes up like crazy and it gets all this attention. And my second thought was, wow, that's really risky. I mean, they're a car company and they are not even making money from their cars, and they buy like a lot of Bitcoin. And uh, I don't know. I'm not hugely into Tesla. I think it's like extremely overvalued, and I think a lot of people will see this as just another, well, let's short Tesla.
Yeah. I mean, I think I do agree with you in the sense that I think Tesla is probably a little bit overvalued. I think it's going to go on to be, an amazing company just because I think it's very hard to bet against Elon. Like it seems like no matter how many world-changing things he adds onto his plate, he still keeps like killing it at all of them, right? And yeah, I mean, you watching interviews with him or anything, like he's an incredibly smart guy and he just works, works his tail off constantly, right? So I would never ever bet, against him, I guess, in that sense. So I do agree with you. I think Tesla's a little bit overhyped. I wasn't really that surprised to hear that they bought up some Bitcoin. Not that I expected this specifically, but it does make sense to me in the sense that it seems up his alley, right? It's like technology. It's obviously like innovative towards the future. It seems the kind of thing he could get into. Like it's good for humanity type of angle. He's got a bit of that flavor, and so I was actually surprised it took until 2021 for him to jump on board. Like I would have expected. And I think he knows that because I've seen him say like, "Oh, I'm really late on this." Like, I mean, still earlier than most people, right? But I think he himself feels like the amount of times I've heard about this, I should have looked at it sooner. So, I mean, I think one other thing I want to get your opinion on is my impression is that I think this one might be a bit of a Trojan horse for Bitcoin Core BTC because it was announced, the price shot up, there was a lot of hype, on the subreddit. Everyone's like, wow, Tesla's accepting us. But I think one thing that was massively overlooked was it's good because it sets a precedent that big companies might be, storing their assets like Google or Amazon, maybe, right? They might be, Facebook, they might be thinking, oh, we should do the same thing. But on the other hand, it was celebrated as this like, oh, wow, Bitcoin's going to take over the world. But this is the first actual merchant that has adopted Bitcoin in like 5 years, right? And it's not setting it's not like a grocery store or anything because if you're buying a Tesla, you can buy it in Bitcoin because if it takes 2 hours and costs you $20, well, if you're buying a $50,000 Tesla, that's fine. Or a rocket, if you're buying that, it needs that security and stuff like that. But that's not really the average use case.
No, I mean, I agree. I think is a good use case for Bitcoin. I think it's not why I'm into crypto. I'm more into like, I want to buy everything, not just the really expensive cars. And I think it might be a pretty cool move from Tesla's point of view because a lot of people have earned a lot of money in Bitcoin, and now they can just, instead of selling it for fiat, they can buy a Tesla. So maybe people will, instead of having the Lambo memes, they will have the
Well,
Tesla
I
memes.
did already see a bit of that. So maybe it is just a bit of a smart like play on his behalf. It's just sort of, yeah, he knows that there's a market there, and so he's sort of jumping into it. Yeah, I think that's true. And so I was watching the network traffic very very closely, and we'll come to that in a second. But it's sort of the Bitcoin network. I mean, it didn't melt down or anything, but it didn't really respond super well. Like fees went from $4 up to like 14 or $20 even. I saw it at one point, and it got super like congested. So I think to me it was sort of proof that the problem with running a system at max capacity all the time is that then as soon as you have another level of usage, which obviously in a viral thing like crypto you can't predict when that's going to be, you really start to struggle, right?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised we haven't surpassed the fee levels of 2070 or 17. I think it reached something like $50 or something I've heard, but we're, we're still a bit far from that. But who knows? Maybe in a week or two, it can just shoot
Yeah,
up.
because it can happen all like very suddenly if there's a very critical event.
Yeah.
Do you think this is do you think Bitcoin Cash or Doge? You thinking Tesla will go for that?
Well, I really hope so. I mean, it's not if you decided to accept Bitcoin, it's not that hard to accept other things as well. So I hope so. And he's been shilling Dogecoin as well. So maybe he will put up and Dogecoin will also
Yeah,
rocket up. I don't know. Uh, I think they will. Maybe not now, but at least pretty soon in the future. Uh,
yeah,
maybe they will just decide to use BitPay, for instance, and then they will get Bitcoin Cash.
for free. Yeah, I mean, I can
Yeah,
see, I mean, obviously Elon's a bit of a troll, right? He was hyping up Dogecoin, and then suddenly he's like,
yeah.
oh, we've got a bunch of Bitcoin, right? That's a pretty classic move. But yeah, I want to go on. Oh, this slide's also not going to load. Hey, we're gonna have all these problems. But I want to go on record for this. I think in the next 18 months, we'll see Bitcoin Cash for sure. Well, not for sure, but my prediction is in 18 months, within 18 months, we'll see Elon will say, look, we're going to accept Bitcoin Cash, and that will be the second one. Maybe Doge as well for the meme. So he might say we're accepting BCH and Doge. I don't think he's going to really be like Ethereum or any other ones like that. But I do think Bitcoin Cash will get in there because we've already seen him talking about there's a good chance, this should be a C, there's a good chance crypto is the future currency of the earth. And then today he was tweeting about this like app, and he has here, any crypto wallet that won't give you your private key should be avoided at all costs, right? So to me, it sort of feels like he knows, he's figuring it out, which is the first thing was obviously, oh, we're going to buy some, and maybe that was, occupying his attention. But now that he's got some, I'm sure his brain has switched into how are we going to take this global, right? And of course, when you're doing that, maybe like before he was like, oh, Bitcoin is pretty cool, and he decided he'd buy some. But maybe now he's thinking he's got to really do his due diligence on the scaling and how's it all going to go down. And so to me, if he's already figuring out like this is a not your keys, not your coins type of idea, if he's got that in his head, then it's like, well, you got, how are we going to get people on chain basically? And BTC is not really looking to support that. So I don't know. My theory. What do you think?
Well, obviously, I like your theory. I'm always. I wish that that's how it will work out. I'm always a bit skeptical of predicting the future because I'm really bad
Yeah,
at it. I mean, from my point of view, it's obvious that Bitcoin Cash is better than Bitcoin, like purely technology. I just I can't understand people who just buy Bitcoin because well it's going up in price. Because to me, you need to look like a level deeper. But it's I I hope that Elon will do it, but I'm not so sure. He might just go, you know. Uh, Troll and try to manipulate the price as much as possible, and then he will look at market cap and like, oh, Ethereum, that's the next big thing, and then we will hype that up. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, my mate, he sort of suggested to me, he's a big fan of Tesla as well and Elon Musk and everything, and he said, yeah, I mean, maybe, like I said to him, I don't think Elon's going to have the best time of it, because if he suddenly decides, look, we're going to take this global, he's going to run into a huge issue where the entire community has already set themselves into a certain narrative. Even though he would be an influential guy, a lot of people have tried a lot of stuff to try and, okay, let's get this back to currency and less of this digital gold type stuff. A lot of people have tried and failed, and eventually just figured out, there's voice and exit. Let's just go for exit. And I think he would be smart enough to pick up on that and go for it. But one point that my mate made, which I thought, deserves consideration, was he thought, okay, well, Elon can obviously just get a bunch of his own devs if he wants. And one thing he might do is he might try and sort of get involved. And if it doesn't go well, he'll just say, fine, fuck it. I'll just fork off and make Tesla Bitcoin or whatever. I mean, I think that would really shake things up. But I don't know. It's just hard for me to see him doing that, because it's more like, well,
Yeah,
why wouldn't you just use Bitcoin Cash if if it was already rolling?
yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, now he has like $1.5 billion in Bitcoin, but he doesn't have that in Bitcoin Cash. So maybe that's incentive enough to fork Bitcoin instead of
Mm,
just selling it and moving to another
yeah,
chain.
yeah. I think I don't know. Maybe I mean, I still sort of think even if that happened, I would still kind of like Bitcoin Cash because we've seen in the past that crypto can suffer from having a centralized leadership, even if in theory it's all decentralized and yada yada. Like if Elon makes a coin, it's basically it's going to be Elon coin, right? Because he's going to own a lot of it. He's going to be the one that sets it all up and says I'm doing this and that. And even as smart as he is, I mean, it's still sort of the philosophy is the net, the what's it called, the wisdom of crowds, right? The network is still smarter than any one individual person. So I don't know, he's got a lot of resources to throw at it. I'd like his chances better than Bitcoin Core, but I would still sort of feel like, yeah, but Bitcoin Cash could maybe do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it's a good point you bring up because people love to talk about centralization and decentralization, but there are different kinds, right? Well, we have the minor centralization or decentralization, which is arguably the most important because it's the one that secures the network. But we also have the developer centralization. Like there are some coins like Ethereum, for instance. I would say that's a pretty centralized coin because if Vitalik says jump,
Everyone jumps.
then the whole community will
Yeah.
jump, and it's. I mean, Bitcoin Cash have like 6 full node implementation, I think, and they seem to be collaborating well. And I think that's reason enough to support Bitcoin Cash because you don't see that in any other cryptocurrency. I mean, you have one dominating developer team and full node in all others I know
Yeah.
of. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. I agree. And I think it was a very hard won type of aspect, right? That only came about
yes,
because of the original fork. And then later on, there was like Bitcoin SV and there was Bitcoin BCH ABC, like forking off and stuff like that. And so that's actually why I quite like Bitcoin Cash at the moment. I mean, as much as I also just it's the original Bitcoin in my mind, right? But one thing is that it's just even if the price is low, it's just putting in the hard yards that other cryptos have not done in terms of making itself more resilient to those kinds of issues, right? And it even occurred to me that if the Bitcoin BTC fees are super high, then well, that money's going to the miners, and so effectively the current BTC users are funding additional mining infrastructure, right? Which could swap over to BCH in the event that there was a big flip. So in that way, the joke would really be on those people who paid all those high fees, and then if the mining infrastructure shifted over, well, they would have just like funded the security of the whole thing. So I think that's interesting. But yeah, with Tesla, yeah, obviously, what's his name? Elon did put in the SEC filing that I'll make this a bit smaller. That he could buy other. Okay, this is just not going to work. Other cryptos, or it even says here, including digital assets, gold bullion, gold exchange traded funds, and other assets as specified in the future. So he's left the door open, to be pretty pretty broad with his strategy. I think I don't think that's an accident.
no, I agree.
Yeah. Right. So another bit of news I saw was this. I thought this was very funny. This Coinbase put out, their update: improved warnings when miner fees are higher than usual. And I think this is a case of second order effects, right? That people need to think in a cryptocurrency when you do one thing or another thing. It might be easy to say, okay, the price is going up or down. That's literally the most basic analysis, right? Because everything affects everything else. And with this surge in fees, which is maybe even not going to be that uncommon, businesses in the ecosystem are having to adapt, right? So if they're the ones who the burden falls on when they get 100 customer support tickets saying, why doesn't this work? Where's my coins? Why did this cost $20 to send $5? All the stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I think that was why Steam and Stripe dropped Bitcoin in when 2017 or something. When fees were really high.
Yeah, it just becomes a hassle. So I mean, as mind blown as I am that the BTC crowd haven't clued in yet, even if they can somehow sort of justify, okay, if the fees are this high or it's this impractical or we don't have this much development or whatever, they think, oh, that's fine for me. I don't know how, in the bigger picture you can see, yeah, but that's not fine for everyone else. That's not fine for the businesses. It's not fine for new users who are just going to say, look, why do I bother with this? They're just going to go somewhere else. And I think the businesses will get to the point where they will actively start like warning against BTC, and they'll say use Bitcoin Cash, hopefully, because that's it just works, right? That's the whole point. If you make it reliable like that, over time, people will migrate towards that. So I think that was interesting. I had this. So this was a screenshot I took here. Again, I really wish I'll see if I can make it a bit bigger, maybe, so everybody can sort of see what I'm talking about. I took this screenshot of during the peak after the Tesla announcement, and what a few things that I really noticed was, so the BTC fees obviously skyrocketed, right? They went from $4 to $9.46 in this screenshot, and then 14 and up to $20. But then the what that meant was that even though there was a lot of things being broadcasted, the confirmed rate was much lower, and all that means is that the backlog gets bigger and the average fee escalates over time, right? That's the only release valve in that scenario. And then by contrast, Bitcoin Cash also had a huge surge in transactions, and they were both doing, up to 8 or 9 like transactions per second. But in BCH, it was the opposite scenario where the fees didn't budge, and even though the broadcasted transactions were high, the confirmed rate was even higher. So everything was like being pushed through, which I thought was really indicative.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
I mean, under like, and I don't know. Again, we just can't predict those viral events. So who knows what the next thing will be, right? Maybe Apple announces they're also bought a lot of Bitcoin, or well, in crypto you can never predict. It will probably be something in a completely different category, but eventually
Yeah.
things do happen, right? And in crypto, they spark manias fairly regularly. So to me, this whole scenario, even though on the face of it, it sounds like much more bullish for BTC Core than for Bitcoin Cash, I sort of took the opposite from it. Although again, maybe that's just because that's what I want to believe. But that was what I took. So yeah, there and then so the transactions have still been like climbing up. There was this huge spike up to like over 500,000, which wasn't real, but it was like the projected volume that it was going to do in that day. Which, but after the hype died off, it didn't carry on at 9 transactions per second for the rest of the day. But it really made me think, like, right, okay, well, maybe we could be doing 500,000 plus transactions a day. Like that is a lot, right? That's a lot of people, one way or another, sending around crypto. Okay, so also in other news, we had this guy Jeff, and he posted on the Reddit, and he said, "Look, I quit my job and I moved to Brazil during the pandemic. Looks like a lot of fun. I don't know if you've ever been to Brazil. I've never been to Brazil.
I
I want
haven't.
to go though. It looks like a blast. Anyway, he set up this wallet with his friend Amanda. So Jeff, if you're watching this, look, I just took it. I just had to get a picture of you both in it. So I don't know. It's not necessarily the best picture, but this sign here is because she obviously has she has like some kind of business, right? And so he got her accepting Bitcoin Cash, and then he posted about it and just said, "Hey, can everybody just throw in $1 or two, and just show her that like, wow, this is this global currency and blah blah blah. There's a community and everything like that." So I did, and a bunch of other people did. Yeah, just $1 or $2, and then he also posted up a video which people can go on the thread and have a bit of a look at, or maybe even we could just throw it up here now without the sound, but where he was like showing her, oh look, you've got all these tips and everything, And to me, that was really okay. Here we go. Somebody, here it is. And to me, it was quite like. Let me just mute this. But yeah, so he just like shows her, okay, here's the, Bitcoin that you've got. And she's kind of like a bit surprised, like, how did this suddenly happen, and whatever. He's just sort of like, showing her like these are all the donations we got from around the world and everything like that. And I don't know. To me, it was kind of like this kind of thing has stopped happening. I'm glad that it is now, but I don't know what you think. But I remember that in the old community, there was this kind of small things just happening all the time that people would say, "Oh, I got my friend into it," or I don't know, some little angle like this, right?
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes it feels like Bitcoin Cash today is like Bitcoin was in the early days. It was all just adoption talk and videos and stuff about getting your friends on. And I think I remember there was some student with a QR code like in Mom send Bitcoin, and he got like a ton of Bitcoin. I don't remember how much it is, but it was pretty lot.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
literally got that slide ready to go because that was exactly the same thing I thought of. This guy who was at this college football game, I think in America, and yeah, he just had this classic sign. It doesn't even make sense. Hi, mum, send. It's like, he's saying hi to his mum, but also to send Bitcoin, or is he telling his mum to send him Bitcoin? It doesn't even literally make sense. But he had this. This is a very old style logo as well too. Now you never see this kind of gold coin type logo, right? Because I think people made it too confusing with like physical currency. I think people moved away from that. But yeah, and this guy he got 22 BTC. He got 44 BTC. I checked the address, so he would have been sorted at the time. But yeah, so he got like nearly 50 grand in Bitcoin donations just because everybody was so excited. Everybody was like, "This is amazing! We're on mainstream TV. It's us against the world type of thing." And when I read up on this, I hadn't looked at it in a long time. He actually said that he was donating a lot of the money to this company called Sean's Outpost, who again I've completely forgotten about them, but they were huge in the community. They did charity work for giving out food, I think in Africa, and they were really well known in the Bitcoin community. Lots of things would be, okay, we're doing this one thing or whatever, but we're donating part of it to Sean's Outpost. So I kind of wonder what happened to that, right? But at a certain point, Sean's Outpost vanished. Lots of these little videos and these cute little things, little moments for the community, they all kind of fell by the wayside. So yeah, I was really glad to see some of that happening again in the Bitcoin Cash community, and I hope people can. You can never predict, but I hope people come up with more stuff like that.
Yeah,
All
totally.
right, cool. So yeah, now the main topic. So yeah, you've written this book, or I guess you've nearly written it. It seems like it's mostly there, and everyone can check it out at whycryptocurrencies.com. It is completely free online and everything. And I had a bit of a read through it. I haven't got through all of it. There was more than I expected. I thought it was going to be like, oh, okay, 5 or 10 little articles all linked together, right? But I was reading it last night, and you've got a lot of content in there. So yeah, talk me through this book.
Well, the reason I started writing this, so I started following Bitcoin like in 2014, as I said, and in 2017 I felt like, well, I think I'm gonna do something about it. Like I'm a software developer, maybe I should, coding Bitcoin Core or something. But then the whole block size debate happened, and after that, there were some issues in Bitcoin Cash with ABC and Bitcoin Unlimited, I think. So I got a like, I don't want to jump into that shark pool. So I wanted to do something else. And uh, always when I talk to people about Bitcoin and crypto, they were always super dismissive, like everyone, like my families, my friends, in school, at work, even on online communities. Like they're very technical, but then like, well, this is just a scam, or and they're still saying it today that well, there are no use cases for
Mm.
crypto. I mean, well, they can say there are illegal use cases, but everything else is like they don't matter. So what do you do when you have people who are wrong on the internet? You write stuff, and I'm like I need to write, okay, but then I had to write like there were people again and again
The
and
same
again
points, right? Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about yeah, exactly the same person. They're still going on today, of course. So I figure, hey, uh, I have some time on my hands, and I have write a book on my bucket list. At first, I thought I wanted to write something about programming because I love
Hmm.
programming. But then I figured, well, why not just take all these small points that I have written? I have like 4 or 5 bullet points, basically. Why don't I turn them into a book? And I'm like, And so I tried to do it. And the way I did it was I wrote a chapter and then I posted it online, and it will always be free. And I want to. The purpose basically is to answer the question. Well, what's the point of crypto? I mean, what can you do with it? What's the value? Or not to explain the high price or anything, but what can you actually do with it? What's the use case? Are some people so excited about crypto? And that's it, I
Yeah,
guess.
I mean, when I came to it, yeah, I sort of had this expectation in my mind of like, especially because you've done it in such that sort of minimalistic UI design style, which I like, but it sort of lends itself to, here is the like the mantra or the philosophy of cryptocurrency, right? And so I was expecting it to be a bit more sort of abstract like that. But then when I was reading it, I thought, wow, it's really, I think you've done a very good job of explaining very sort of clearly and simply what's going on in quite a good, like breakdown. Like it does have a bit of a progression where it talks about, what is a cryptocurrency like in general terms, and then how does the cryptocurrency work, and then what is it used for, and then what are the sort of additional like features and stuff towards the end, right? So I think that progression uh, was really nice, and I mean I picked up stuff that I didn't know reading it, right? So like you had a little mention there of the zero confirmation forfeits, right, as being a potential future feature. I'd never heard of that. And I mean, that's, it's another aspect of that, like game theory, economic incentives type stuff, which is such an unexplored field, right? I'm sure we're going to see more and more development in that over the next couple of decades. And the Dash Instamine as well. I'd never heard of it. I owned Dash like a few years back, but I'd never heard about any of that. So there's just all these more and more little nooks and crannies that you can find out about cryptocurrency.
Yeah, and I think I've only like touched the surface. There are so much more things you can say and do and things to learn about. These are just things I picked up during the years, and oh, this is kind of cool to remember. And I put it in a doc, and I used it later here. And I think I don't think much of these things are new. These are just things that someone has said, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna expand on this, and this seems pretty useful.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason I decided I'd do this podcast, I think, was the same motivation as you had, which is I got sick of typing something out for about the 50th time where you're just like, look, I've already argued with, I know it wasn't this exact person, but I've told somebody else this, and I think it's interesting is that people, you see posts on Reddit or on forums or even like your friends and family or whatever, and they've heard about Bitcoin a few times or whatever. They're a little bit interested, and they ask a question, and it's like, well, uh, what happens when there's no money for the miners or something like that? And you think, look, the classic example I really want to say is when people say, oh, look, I found this trading bot for Bitcoin and I'm going to pay $5 and get this trading bot. And they can think in their mind, oh, I'm instantly going to be rich, or like I'm going to, it's just going to print me money. And you think people go from it's not a scam, Bitcoin at all, to I'm curious about Bitcoin because clearly there's enough substance to it that it's not a scam. But then immediately they're looking for the scam angle.
Yes. I mean, and I must admit, I was a little bit the same. So when I heard about that, I was like, oh, this is amazing. I'm going to run so many masternodes and I'm going to earn so much money. And then I learned more, and it's like, well, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably
Except for
is.
Bitcoin
And
Cash,
there
but
are.
yeah.
Uh, yeah. I mean, these cloud mining things, for instance, well, it's not so profitable. And me and my friend, we were talking, oh, we're gonna become miners, and then you know, uh, and I think we need to be like educate. When I started writing this book, it was almost felt like a step down. Like, oh, okay, I settle for doing something that's not so important instead of working on the full node, for instance. But the more I think about it, the more I think that education or reaching out to new people is so very important.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's obviously historically a huge problem that cryptocurrencies has been the PR. I mean, I'm in two minds about that because on one hand, okay, obviously Bitcoin had so many scams and issues and whatever else, but on the other hand, that stuff is all great publicity, right? Like if Bitcoin was just it worked, but it was super boring. Nobody would ever get excited. But the fact there's scams and drugs and hackers and people losing uncountable amounts of money that then later on they had in their hard drive. And it's such a good story. It's so many things about it.
Yeah.
Satoshi's anonymous, and then some people claim to be Satoshi, and then they weren't Satoshi, and then Dorian Nakamoto got called out for being Satoshi, but he wasn't Satoshi. But all of that stuff, right? It's just this constant like circus that goes on over the top of the sort of the much slower technical development as it just slowly ramps up, one line by line of new wallet implementations, more secure businesses supporting it, more exchanges, more ways to interact with things in the scene, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me as well, I think just this same idea of explaining things to people, because they do have those same questions over and over again, and I don't think most people are ever like most people will be familiar with cryptocurrencies eventually because it's just going to be a part of their lives, right? But the fact is, I spent most of my life never wondering what is money and where it came from, and a lot of people didn't, and they find cryptocurrency and then they got to have that education. But I think especially as over time UIs get slicker and stuff, it will soon sort of fade into the background of all these questions of what is mining and how, who decides this, that, and the other thing. Like people won't care. It's like the internet, people are not going out to read up on HTTP and how it all works. They just know, okay, I've go on my phone, there's a thing called the internet, I can go to these addresses, that's where stuff is. Like, yeah.
Yeah, so one thing I think the community does a bit wrong here is they focus so much on the technology. I mean, so they recommend to a new person, well, go read the white paper.
I did that.
So
I screwed up.
Yeah, so the white paper is actually very readable for a white paper, but it's still quite technical, right? And really the how Bitcoin does what it does, it doesn't really matter. What matter is what Bitcoin do. I mean, what properties do they have? For instance, that a transaction can never be reversed. This is much more important to know than how it does that.
Yeah.
And after that, you can, okay, what does it mean really? Well, you have uncensorable transactions, for instance. So what does it mean? Well, it means that PayPal cannot shut down a small business like they have done thousands of times before. Well, it means that the US government cannot block donations to WikiLeaks when WikiLeaks release evidence of their war crimes, for instance. And these are good things. These are like concrete things. And I think we should start there, not with these abstract things or even the abstract thing of what money is, even though I think that's a pretty important thing. And I had also never even thought about it, even though everyone uses money all the time. And money, I mean, money is everywhere. You can't live in this world if you don't use money or do something with money. So if cryptocurrencies can be money, or maybe they can improve some aspect of money, well, that is huge. But I think that these concrete examples are even better to show someone why crypto exists. For instance, what you showed here, that anyone can send donations to this girl in Brazil. It's like it explains so much.
Yeah. And that's why I think those kind of experiences, you know, I threw in $1, a bunch of people threw in $1, and to me, the return on investment there is massive. It's not even like some huge, okay, it's nice that I feel a bit charitable and stuff like that, but it's also just, it's like a no-brainer from a business case, right? Where okay, she's got a little bit of Bitcoin. She can see, okay, this is how it works. Wow, I can receive money from everywhere. Maybe she's excited about it. She tells 5 of her friends. You know, she sends a couple to them as well. Like they share around a couple of dollars, and then because it's not necessarily the case that people are going to be flooding through the doors to buy things with cryptocurrency the next day, but if you can give it a bit of that positive initial impression, then it'll just sit in the back of the mind until that scenario comes up, and then it will be like, oh, well, you know, it's actually happening whenever that is. It doesn't need to be soon or later, but it's just that it's important to have those initial impressions and get a real sense of it.
Yeah. And I think adoption wise, so adoption is super important, and it's what I think we should focus most of the time with. But it kind of, it's slow. It's slow to replace like the existing infrastructure we have. It's super slow to replace something like PayPal, and it's extremely slow to replace something like the US dollar, for instance. I mean, many cryptocurrency advocates have this dream of, well, we're gonna replace the dollar, but that will take like decades or centuries if it ever happens. So I think we need to focus on these small things, and hopefully it will ramp up by its own in the future.
It's interesting you say that, decades or centuries. I don't know if I agree with that, because to me, obviously, I think of it in terms of Bitcoin cryptocurrency has been going for 12 years now, and I think the hard fork between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash originally, I think that definitely slowed things down at least 6 or 7 years minimum, maybe 10. I think it's hard for people who weren't there at the time or to sort of understand how much momentum and energy everything had going forward. And I think now in 2021, we're starting to see sort of crypto start to get a little bit of that same foothold that it had then. It's actually in some ways quite handy, because now it's just been going on in the background and people have heard about it over and over and over and over and over again. That's the main thing you need for adoption, is somebody to hear about it 10 times, 20 times, 100 times, because eventually they get the idea of, I've heard about this so many times and I don't know about it. Why not? Like, I need to look this up. Nobody likes to be the one person in the room who isn't with it, who doesn't know what's going on. And so it just takes seeding those, you know, people who get really into it and they buy some or they trade some or whatever they do first. And then I agree with you that it takes a long time, but it is also an exponential. And especially in the modern world where we have the internet and we have, you know, this and that going on, in some respects, it makes me think back to those early days of 2012 or 2013, actually how small the Bitcoin community was then, because now it's probably, 10 or 100 times the size, and yet I haven't seen any noticeable change in what's going on in the world in terms of, oh wow, people are doing Bitcoin payments anywhere. And so it makes me think, with the internet, it can kind of amplify that. Even if there was only, let's say, less than 100,000 people in the world or something like that who were into Bitcoin, it still felt like, wow, it's kicking off. Everybody's got businesses and ideas, and this is going on and that's going on, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's always been difficult to predict the future, but that's even more difficult now in today when we have the internet and the technology is like exploding. It's like improving at such a rapid rate that it's almost impossible to say where are we in a decade from now, for instance. I mean, when the computers came, they were like, well, nobody's going to have a computer in their home. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And now here we are, like a decade after the smartphone, or
Yeah,
is it two
it was
decades? I don't.
2007 was the smartphone with Steve Jobs, so it's probably 15 years just about.
Yeah, and now we have like a smartwatch, which is almost as powerful as whatever iPhone first released. And I mean, uh, we went to the moon with
I love those
a,
stats. Yeah.
compu- yeah, a computer that was less powerful than a regular watch. I mean, not even these smart watches we have. I mean, that's just crazy. Yeah, so I mean, maybe you're right. I don't know.
I mean, I
Uh,
think I think centuries. It's not going to take centuries, just because I feel like the when you think about it, an exponential, it's like the last 50% takes, maybe like 1 year or something like that. If half of the population is using Bitcoin, then
yes.
it's like it's all over. Like 1 year later, everybody's using Bitcoin, right? So
Yeah.
I just think. Yeah, I think the hard fork set us back, but I would say, like, by 2030, I think, I mean, even if I don't know, probably not 5 years still seems a bit fast to me. 10 years, a lot can happen in 10 years. And just because now the wallets are there and all that sort of stuff, like, for me, like I mentioned in my previous episode with my parents getting a bit into it and stuff like that. I did a transaction the other day with, some people who'd never done crypto before, and it's literally they download the app, you send them some, it pops up as a nice little notification ding. You just got $1 of cryptocurrency. It's like, wow, that was easy. Yeah, it is. So I think the battle now is not so much the technology, even though that's still going to be the bleeding edge of what people are working on. I think now it's totally about politics, about people's opinions, about society, about spreading that message, and about education. I think you're right to be focused on that. Yeah. So what's the game plan with this then? I mean, you do have a bit of a section in the book, so I do partly know, but for the listeners, when are you planning to have this finished, and what happens then? Because to me, it's already seems it's basically all there, right?
Yeah, so the web version is basically there and it's basically complete. And I'm working on an ebook and a print version. And the cover was finished like just this week, I guess.
Yeah, that
Uh,
was actually so cool. I've got to pull that up here in a second, because that was what first grabbed my eye. Is this cover that you've done is actually so cool. Let me just find it
yeah,
here. Is it on the site?
yeah.
Is it on Why Cryptocurrencies, or am I gonna have to look it up on
No,
Reddit?
it's not.
Okay.
I think you need to search for it in Reddit.
Yeah.
I've only uploaded it
Okay,
there
I'll find
yet.
it.
I need to create a better landing page for the
Hmm.
website to showcase the print version and the ebook as well. Uh, so I had this idea for a cover. I wanted to people to look at it and to represent different things that I talk about in the book or different things related to
Hmm.
cryptocurrencies. And I wanted to have like a confused person in there. And I love cyberpunk, so I wanted it to be a bit cyberpunky.
Yeah.
And it turned out really well. I found this awesome designer who helped me realize my vision.
Yeah,
Uh,
let
so
me
yeah.
just get this on screen here. Like I was like, this is so. This could be a poster. You know what you should do is you should sell like posters or like a framed, even just a poster. I think would be bloody good. I would have a poster of this on my wall. It's just it's so awesome. So for people who are listen to the audio versions, don't look. I mean, you can go on YouTube and look up this episode and have a look at it. But I do really recommend it's this. Yeah, like you're saying, it's this sort of cyberpunk cartoon of someone in a hoodie on this sort of street, which I guess is like cryptocurrency street in this sort of Blade Runner type apocalyptic scenario, I guess, with a little bit of government oversight or something going on in the top, a bit of a Zeppelin, and all the neon signs of all the shops are sort of crypto related things. So there's a Bitcoin symbol, there's Dogecoin, Monero, like blockchain, and these sort of references to different things like TX Street, which is the site where you can watch the blockchain transactions happening. I was curious about this triple X. Am I missing something that, or is it just like it's related to porn and you can,
Nah, it's just porn, and cryptocurrencies is a good use case for porn.
yeah.
And I think recently Visa and Mastercard they dropped Pornhub
Mm.
for payments. So the only option they had was to turn to cryptocurrencies. So now the only way you can get a premium account on Pornhub is to pay with crypto.
Yeah, exactly. When I saw it, I thought, yeah. And I like this as well, this trust us under the bank. It's very like They Lie, do you know? Or what's it called? They Live. They Live. Do you know that movie?
No, I actually don't.
Okay, well, it's this, again, I'll link you to the scene afterwards, but it's this, maybe we can even just line it up here. But it's this movie from the 80s. The movie itself is actually pretty rubbish, but it's known for two things, which is one is that it has one of the longest fight scenes of any. Maybe it is the longest fight scene of any movie. It goes on for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, right? And the other thing that it's super famous for is this scene. So I'll just see if we can get it. Here we go. And this nice and it's this guy, and yeah, he's on the street and he has a look at these these billboards for advertising, and with these special sunglasses he can see how the population is being controlled as to the messaging to them, right, of to consume and be part of the capitalist society, and yeah, advertising and all that stuff. So kind of
Yeah.
it's a very interesting idea, and I think it plays quite well as well on TV, with the kind of like seeing the truth, and I think it does also tie in quite nicely with cryptocurrency, because people maybe have that sense of, now I can understand how money works and how the system happens with the banks and fractional reserve lending and all this stuff that you never find out until one day you kind of think, wow, I've been living in this system my whole life, and I never saw it.
Yeah, basically. I think actually the Big Short movie
Yeah.
popularized this idea pretty well that, well, banks aren't really that good.
Hmm.
And it really plays into the whole cyberpunk idea is mega corps taking over and controlling your life, basically. And that's really what the banks are today. And well, I wouldn't say they're that evil, but it feels like we're moving toward this future, this dystopia that I think cyberpunk displays so very well.
Yeah, I mean, and it was with the whole GME situation and stuff recently as well. It's just sort of a confirmation of that, and people, I think I think part of it is, yeah, it is sort of unknowing education that we have. Because one way I always imagined a bank, I think a lot of people did, was that when you're a kid, you have a piggy bank, right? And you get a couple of coins because, I don't know, your parents give you some, or however the hell you get them, and you put them in the bank and you think, oh, that's my money. And your parents teach you, listen, if you want to get something, a video game or something, you got to save up, and then you diligently save away, and then you finally one day you crack open the piggy bank. I didn't have it wasn't a piggy. I had a jar, but you have the jar, and then bam, you get what you want, and you think, wow, and then that informs your model of how it works, because then at some stage you get a bank account and you think, yep, this is like my piggy bank, put the money in there, and then when I come back, the money is still there, and all that. You kind of learn that system. But of course, that's completely not how it actually works with the banks. That they're giving you a promise to give you back the money, but they don't just have the money sitting in the vault for you there, because I guess I learned with coins and stuff like that. But maybe kids now, maybe they don't. Maybe it is just, well, it's probably going to be cryptocurrency, I think, which is quite interesting. They're never going to argue about whether or not cryptocurrency is real, because as soon as one kid at school, I don't know when kids get smartphones these days, but one kid is going to have a smartphone with some crypto, and immediately that's going to become the local economy. It'll be whatever chocolate bars or whatever is being sold, for sure. It's going to spread around like wildfire. So I don't know whether that's happened yet, but it's just going to at some point.
Yeah. I want to say that I don't think that if we use crypto that banks will disappear or something. I do think they have some pretty good use cases. For example, they give out loans. They might help you with investments or insurance, for instance. But it will definitely bring down their power. And fractional banking, sure, they can do it on top of cryptocurrencies too, but it's much more risky because they don't have a central bank just waiting to help them if they screw up, which is basically what they do today. If the banks screw up, the central bank can just give them an unlimited amount of money to rescue them. So the banks don't really, I mean, they get out of free jail card, really. They can do whatever they want. They can mess up how badly they want. They will still get rescued.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's still going to be a place for financial services, exactly like you're saying. I think it will take a very different form, in the sense that the security model of Bitcoin, and one of the reasons that it's been such a struggle and so scam filled, the whole transition process, even for people who understand cryptocurrency fairly well, is it's very new and different for people to understand. Wait, I'm in control, and control comes with costs, right? Which is that you're the one who can screw it up, and especially when you're not familiar at first, that's difficult. And the kind of, yeah, the model is that instead of having one big honeypot of everybody's money in the bank, and you could go in and rob the bank and get all the money out. I mean, again, that's not really how it works now in this world of digital computers anyway. You can't really do that. But in the days of, we're going to go and stick up the gold vault and get all the gold out, instead it's more like, well, if you have every individual different person who has all done their own little security arrangements, then it's much harder to hack it and crack it. So that was the sort of failings of things like Mount Gox and whatever, right, where they had all the funds in their one big pot, and then of course that was where the hacking, or who knows whether it was just the social engineering or just the opportunism of the people involved, or whatever kind of kicks into gear, and then everybody who had their Bitcoin saved there discovers that it's all gone, right? So I really want to reinforce to the listeners, whether they have crypto or whatever they're doing at the moment, this idea of not your keys, not your coins. So if you have cryptocurrency, you want to have it in a wallet, not on an exchange, not on the Lightning Network, not on whatever other system. It's got to be on the blockchain in your wallet, because that's the way you don't run into any of those scams and stuff. And it's it seems intimidating and difficult and different, and that's because it is. That's the new way that we need to start thinking about finance.
Yeah, I think one difficult thing is how to secure your wallet. It's not something I wrote in this book, but it's something, I mean, it's almost like missing. We need to have good, clear guidelines or recommendations on how to secure your seed, because we always just say, well, write down your seed, but then a burglar might find it,
Mm.
and then they will take all your coins. Maybe your disgruntled ex-girlfriend might find it, and she takes your coins.
Yeah,
Or maybe your house will burn down,
yeah,
and maybe your phone was there together with your seed, and so on. I mean, there are many ways to shoot yourself in the foot, unfortunately. So cryptocurrencies, I don't think they improve everything. I mean, there are drawbacks and there are difficulties here. So I think education and understanding what it is you're doing. I mean, writing down your seed is a very good step, but it's only the first step, I think.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And because yeah, it sort of comes to that idea that because you're in control, people are used to trusting institutions. They're used to banks being in charge of their finances, or maybe, I don't know, insurance companies being in charge of their medical records, or whatever. And I think as things move forward, we'll see more and more. Recently, I was looking at this decentralized finance stuff in cryptocurrency, and the idea as well with Kim.com and his new project K.im. A lot of this stuff, it has client side storage of your keys, and then you just interact with the service, which to an external user, if they're not particularly technical, maybe it doesn't make a big difference if they don't understand if, okay, I use my browser, I go on this site and I do whatever. But there's a very big difference between logging onto Facebook, and Facebook has your passwords and all that, and it lets you onto the site, it has all your content there, versus something where you have client-side keys, like in decentralized finance or whatever, where actually if the service goes down or goes away, or if they got hacked or whatever, they wouldn't have access to your information or your ways of logging in or your money in the case of cryptocurrency. And so there's no obvious UI distinction either between those two things. And I think people will have to become slightly more technically educated, just as out of necessity, to start to understand this new model, because things were not programmed like that in the past, whether because it wasn't really that possible, or whether just because we hadn't got to that stage of development yet. Yeah. All right, cool. So as well, we can talk as well about, you told me about your project BitPal that you made it was for a hackathon, right?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to do this before. So I'm gonna sell my book, like an ebook, on Amazon and the usual places. But I also want to sell it from my site and just have you send whatever you want, and you will get the ebook for free,
Yeah.
or almost for free. And I wanted to. So how do you accept crypto for your website? Well, I'm a programmer. I should be able to figure this out, right? So I had a few requirements. So I wanted to verify everything with my own full node. And there are no good solutions, or I didn't think so, at least. There is BTC Pay Server, for instance, but they don't have Bitcoin Cash support. There's this other project as well, but they only use SPV security, and that's great and all, but I wanted to go the full mile. So the idea was, well, okay, I can just figure it out and add it to my site. And then we had this hackathon, which was organized by Bitcoin Unlimited. And I figured, well, I can use this as an excuse to actually do this thing, because I'm a big procrastinator, of course. I mean, if I can get away without doing anything, I will do that. I mean, I would do something else.
They say devs are very lazy, right? Like programmers, that's what they do, is they will work very hard at figuring out a way to be lazier, right?
Yeah, it's like, well, I can configure my Vim config like for hours just to do this small thing a little bit more efficient, right?
Yeah.
well, anyway, so me and one of my friends did this, and we managed to do well, we call it BitPal, like a play on BitPay,
Mm.
because BitPay has recently started to add pretty hard know your customers. So they often require you to sign up. They didn't used to do this, and then you have to like provide their driver's license or passport or whatever. So the next step really is for merchants or websites to accept crypto directly without having any third parties. So you shouldn't go through BitPay, because BitPay may say that, hey, this torrenting VPS, well, we don't like torrenting, so we don't support your site. They might say, well, this porn thing, we don't like porn, so we will just not support your site. So BitPal, it's well, you run your own node, you run your own hardware, you verify your own transactions, and the server doesn't even know your private key or your seed. You can have your wallet in your phone, for instance, and you will receive your payments there. And this was made in as an Elixir library, because I wanted to make my site in Elixir or Phoenix. And we actually managed to finish it during the hackathon, which is pretty good because, well, I have a kid and we have both work to do. So it was a bit stressful. And the plan is to integrate this into my site, and I want to add like many different cryptos as well, because I want to, foster adoption. And if you have received a small tip of crypto somewhere, what can you use it for if you have $1 in crypto, for instance? Well, maybe not so much. Well, I want to give you an option to buy the ebook here and to sponsor me, or whatever you call it. Yeah, basically that's the project.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea, because it seems inevitable to me that somebody is going to do some project like this. And being a software developer as well myself, I know that usually I will expect there to be an open source implementation of a standard type of thing, right? So let's say a standard type of a calendar widget, right, that you might have on a website. I will be very surprised if I need to put this in my project. Let me just look it up, calendar, JavaScript, and I am expecting there to be one library. Usually for something like a calendar, there'll be 3 or 4 options, and one of them will be good, one of them will be mediocre, and 2 or 3 will be like 3 years old and nobody's really bothering with them anymore, right? So things do concentrate down, and the one that's good will be really good. It'll have all the documentation, it'll have exactly what I need, and I'm just off to the races, right? And so for crypto, I think because there is, it's still quite new, obviously. The pool of developers is still small, and also the use cases of it still haven't been explored and expanded. And what dev resources there are going directly into the very basic infrastructure in terms of the protocol itself, the full node implementations, maybe different kinds of wallets or whatever. There's already a lot of work on that. So it hasn't matured and expanded out into these other kinds of tools, like you're saying with the payment processing stuff. So I could definitely see myself using it for this for my website, right, for the podcast. I'm not exactly sure how I'm gonna work that in the future, but it does occur to me that maybe people can donate to these videos individually, but maybe I should have some solution to donate there directly, or maybe I have some paid content. I'm not super keen on that idea, so all the listeners can relax. I'm not, oh no, this new secret episode costs $1. Like, I don't think I'm really going in that direction. But anyway, some idea might occur to me. I don't know, some merchandising, or could be anything. And if the tools were there, that would be really helpful, I think.
Yeah, there are similar solutions. Like if you want to rely on someone else's REST API, for instance, I think bitcoin.com has one. You can do that. I just wanted to go in a slightly different direction. I also think there's things like pay button, which is basically just a JavaScript thing you insert into your page and you can accept payments, which is really sweet. I wanted to do it like this way, and I think there are many other different ways to do it as well. And I think as the space matures, I think we'll see all these options which cater to slightly different needs will appear. This was just a thing to scratch my own itch.
Well, that's usually how the best dev programs get started, right? It's something I'm passionate about. What one thing leads to another thing, and before you know it, you have a bunch of people chipping in pull requests online, I guess.
Yeah. So the idea is to launch a flip starter for this, like on Sunday, I think. And it would allow me and another guy to take a little break for our job and maybe make it production ready. So now it's only like an Elixir library, but we would like to have an REST API, and we would like to have like great documentation, so it's easy to spin up your own server if you want, etc. So I don't know. We'll see if that happens or if it doesn't happen. If it doesn't, then I will, fix it so I can use it for my site. And it's open source, so anyone can just take it and run with it if that's what they want.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that myself. I've done a little bit of Elixir program. I really, really like Elixir as a programming language, but unfortunately, there's very little industrial demand for it in the current market. So I haven't managed to work it into my. I know at my old job actually, I did cheekily do a little bit of Elixir on one or two things that it probably wasn't quite necessary for, just to just to appease myself. But yeah, I might have a look at that, and yeah, hopefully the flip starter will go well. I mean, that's just one thing to interestingly touch on. Have you done a flip starter before, or is this going to be your first one?
No, this is my first, and I really love the idea. I mean, Kickstarter is really big for a reason, and I think Flipstarter again, removing the third party, so you don't have to trust Kickstarter with your money. It will just go directly to the content creators. It's just a fantastic use of crypto, and I think this is one of these like extra features or extensions that you don't really think about either. I tried to exemplify some of them in my book, but there are like thousands more. Uh, some call it like programmable money, and I think that's a pretty good description of what cryptos really are.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that people don't. In some ways, we've got a bit of a disconnect, right? Because on one side, you have all the people who are not involved in cryptocurrency, or they don't get it, or there's all the problems we were talking about before with education, and then you have this tiny little funnel where people are slowly trickling through, and then on the other side, you have all these apps that are being built and all this stuff, and it's like if you have cryptocurrency already, but even then it's split down into all the different cryptocurrencies, so maybe some things only work with some currencies, but on the other side, you have so many people who are so keen and so excited, and the devs are building these new products and features and everything like that. But then there's not that much of an audience for them, not because it's not awesome things, but because there's not people who are A, already have the cryptocurrency, or B, familiar enough, they're already overwhelmed by, I could just sending and receiving. They're not thinking, how can I be on this decentralized Kickstarter, or how can I be whatever different apps there are, right? There's thousands of them, and I'm sure
Yeah.
the good ones will rise to the top. But I think again, just more adoption really solves that problem.
Yeah, and you touch on another thing that I'm a bit annoyed about the cryptocurrency space. It's the subdivision between all the different cryptos. Like you have Bitcoin Cash, you have Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Monero, Ethereum, etc., etc. And it's like people are very, what do you call it, tribal. Yeah. So my crypto that I support is the best, and everyone else are shitcoins or altcoins or whatever. And I'm really annoyed about that. So my book isn't really about any one single crypto. I mean, I bring up Bitcoin Cash because I like it, because it follows the peer-to-peer digital cash vision that Satoshi set forth, meaning you should be able to use it as payment. You should be able to use it as money. And from my point of view, I support all the cryptos that have this vision. I mean, I don't really care if it's Bitcoin Cash that survives in the end, or if it's called Dogecoin or Boobcoin or whatever. I don't really care. I support the crypto vision generally, and I think it would be good if more people did that and not only just focused on their little thing and reject all the other.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that it's very online, and it doesn't really matter what it is.
Yeah.
Any community that is online is so much more, uptight, and it just has to be because online it's so anybody from the world can be coming in and trolling you and acting in bad faith and stuff. If you have a meetup with people online face to face, it's pretty quick to filter out people who are just, they're being disingenuous, right? But online you're forced by that pressure, and so everybody has to kind of defend against that. And I think also, obviously, because people have money in it, because they've got money on the line, whether their currency succeeds or doesn't succeed or whatever, maybe they have too much money invested in it, so they're quite opinionated or quite invested in what happens. And I think, once you have, I mean, the funny thing is, I think in the future, there will be services and stuff that emerge where it will be you're just paying whatever currency you want, and there'll be some sort of service that just converts it into, I don't know, I'm sure maybe that already kind of exists. Like, I know there's SideShift, different services like this that basically you can pay in one kind of currency and then receive out in another currency. So you could easily have, like with BitPay, like you were saying before, you have these payment gateways or different merchant services or whatever, where the user can pick, I have this cryptocurrency, I have Ethereum, or I have Bitcoin Cash, or I have Dogecoin, and you just send it in there, and then it automatically gets transferred in the market. Maybe it gets sold on an exchange or at the market price or whatever. They buy another cryptocurrency that the merchant has decided, I want to be receiving this currency, and then that currency gets received, which is very interesting because it means that we could have a completely interoperative economy, but at the same time preserve the ability to sort of vote. I like that about cryptocurrency, that people can vote on what currency they want, by which one they accept and which one they hold, right? So that people can actively support the community or the payment system or whatever that they want. I really don't think we should lose that, although I think we could be less tribal.
Yeah, I do think there are these services. I think BTC Pay Server has something similar where you can automatically shift. The problem with this is, of course, that it requires a third party. So if you rely on Shapeshift, for example, well, you need to trust that they don't suddenly add know your customer requirements, which they coincidentally have done. I think they're trying to move away from that, but it's kind of hard for them. For instance, there are projects which want to do atomic swaps. So you can, for instance, I follow the Monero community a lot, and they're working on the Bitcoin and the Monero atomic swap. So you could theoretically accept Monero and then receive Bitcoin, or the reverse. And I think the grand vision with BitPal, if you're gonna do something like the best payment processor ever, is to have this. You should accept all the cryptocurrencies, and you should be able to say, well, I only want to receive Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin or Monero or whatever, but you can pay with whatever you want.
Yeah.
I think
Any money is money, right? If you're a merchant, you're probably whatever they want to pay with, that's what you got to accept, right? And I think that's a lesson that people need to understand. And I'm personally not a huge advocate for going out and saying to merchants, accept Bitcoin, blah blah blah, Bitcoin Cash, blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff. It seems like you can put in a lot of effort and not get very far. You could put that effort into something else, but that it will merchant adoption, in my mind, arises naturally as you get a concentration of people in an area with that currency, because then soon enough, either the merchant themselves, they start buying cryptocurrency, and then they think, well, I'm already selling this, why don't I just sell it for crypto as well? It's not really a hassle. Or there's so many people that they just sort of suddenly twig that, wait a second, 60% of my potential customers have this, or whatever. So yeah. All right, cool. Well, we've been going for nearly an hour and 20 minutes, so we can wrap it up. I don't know how long you have this evening, but yeah, is there anything you wanted to mention or bring up? Any topics? Any message to the Bitcoin Cash community? Anything you think needs saying?
I didn't prepare anything, and I can't come up with anything
Yeah, I'll put you
either.
on the spot.
So,
Well, be less tribal. We can run with that. Just even if Bitcoin Cash, that's what I'm here for. I'm a huge advocate of that. Even to the exclusivity of other currencies. I mean, I'll talk about sometime. I'll have an episode where I talk about okay, what's all the different currencies and what are my thoughts and stuff like that. But I think yeah, people need to just be understanding because everyone can have their own little sandbox. Everybody can play in their little part of the crypto sphere, and ultimately, other people who are on board with crypto are not the ones that really are out of the loop, right? Because it's really just a matter of preference, one cryptocurrency or another, and it's really more about spreading crypto to the 99% of people who don't have it. And I think yeah,
yeah, exactly. I think it's the vision or like the crypto as money, or we should use crypto to pay for things. I think that's the important thing that we should focus about, not fighting with our little army against their little army when the rest of the world are watching.
yeah, well said. Well said. All right, cool. So yeah, then that's pretty much the end of the show. So people can check out why cryptocurrencies at the link, maybe the BitPal stuff as well. If you send me a link, I'll put that in the show description and stuff for people who are interested. They can check that out. I want to say thanks to the donators that we had on the last and every episode. It's great. Love you a lot. And also as well, I have been working on the RSS feed. I keep meaning to mention this, but I don't. Do you know much about RSS? I created my own RSS feed. I use this external service, and I put up the first episode, and then the second episode they said, "Oh, we're going to charge you or sign up." So I thought, "Fuck this." So I decided, look, I'll just code it up myself. So I did, and I made it, and it was all working, and I got the first 3 episodes going. But then when I published the last episode, it didn't sort of pop up in people's feeds. But because I'm not a RSS user myself, even though I think it's a good idea, but I've just never got really into it. Because I don't use it myself, I'm kind of out of the loop as to what I'm missing. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I've created my RSS feed myself as well. Uh, it's kind of tricky, I guess. I didn't have like a readily made library for that either. So
I mean, I'm just generating a rss.xml file, which I just have in the public folder of my
yeah,
web
same.
server. So I sort of feel like if I just update that, if I add in the new content which is being generated, a loop over the episode list, then it should just work. But it hasn't seemed to work. So obviously I'm missing something. Anyway, I'll figure that out. But for the listeners, I'm getting there. It's just a matter of when do I have time to sit down and bash away at it. So yeah, thank you very much for coming on the show. And
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for helping fixing spelling and grammar issues in my book.
yes, I need to finish that. When I've got time to read through the last couple segments, I'll do that as well. All right, so yep, I guess that's it, and until next time.